welcome to this afternoon's plenary session of the INCYBER Forum here at the Grand Palais in Lille. I'm Tom Burgess-Watson. I'm a journalist at France 24, and I'm delighted to present this afternoon with my colleague and friend Julia Seeger, who also works with me at France 24.
Bonjour Tom et bonjour à vous tous. On est ravis.
Hello Tom and hello everybody. We're delighted to see you in this room in the Grand Théâtre. Welcome to everybody here in the room, but also those who are with us remotely, whether on the app or on YouTube where the event is live streamed.
In store for you this afternoon, the theme is digital revolution and geopolitical shift. Is Europe still in the race? Well, as that suggests, we're going to be focusing on Europe and finding out about the latest legislation and all the efforts that are being made to protect European citizens and nations from hostile forces. I'll be joined on the stage by a number of experts, amongst them the guardians of data protection here in Europe. I'll be asking, what role does AI play in protecting our democracies?
Et effectivement, nous évoquerons aussi comment les soldats utilisent de plus en plus l'intelligence artificielle.
We're also going to see how soldiers use artificial intelligence increasingly in war zones, and also how generative AI is really redistributing, dealing a new deck in terms of global geopolitics.
This afternoon, but don't worry, we've got translation into French simultaneously. And I just want to say one other quick word about the artist that we have with us here in the hall. Gilbert Casamajou is sitting over there in the corner. We can just see him, and he's going to be sketching as we go along. He does some great artwork, so we're really looking forward to seeing that. And a big thank you to you, Gilbert.
Voilà, et encore une fois.
And for those who need translation, you have headsets available to you at the front of the room, so don't hesitate to go and fetch one. Also know that this event is a participative event, so if you would like to comment, ask questions, you can do it on all the platforms with the INCYBER Forum hashtag, and don't hesitate to ask your questions or your comments for those who are online as well.
With those discussions on the agenda, we're going to start off with some prizes. The INCYBER Startup Prize is organized in partnership with Eviden, and it aims to recognize innovative European startups in the field of security and digital trust. I would like to invite onto the stage the Cybersecurity Senior Vice President at Eviden, Chris Moret.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome. Well, I am not the president of the jury. The chairman was unfortunately unable to be with us, so I am here to assist and replace our chairperson. Well, we're delighted to have you here with us. I wanted to ask you first and foremost, what is your opinion, or what do you think of the winners of this 2024 edition? Well, regarding the winners and all the candidates and the jury, in fact, what we observed is that there was a great diversity there was a focus on zero trust this year that was much more noticeable than in previous years, and also a maturity both among the members of the jury, and I'd like to thank them on behalf of FERA, but also among the candidates. So there's maturity clearly among our candidates. Why do you think it's important to support startups? Well, startups are the future. As a leader company in cybersecurity, of course, like all these major companies, we have to work with startups who will bring us the technology of the future. We have seen new ideas such as network invisibility, which is something quite new. Just some examples of what we see. So it's really important to support these startup businesses, to help them to grow, to open our customer base so that they can do proofs of concepts, develop in the future, and become global leaders. I hope so for them, and thank you very much, Mr. Moret.
Some members of the jury, they're going to be coming up onto the stage with the winners. You can see in the slide who they all are in the jury. I'd like to start by inviting the winners of the Coupe de Coeur Prize, a company called Sapporo. They're going to be accompanied by jury member Isolde Garnier onto the stage. Please come up here.
So, what are your impressions? Do you have anything you'd like to tell us? Yes, thank you very much to the jury and the quality of the comments and feedback. Well done to over the 80 startups in Europe who participated and to all the other prize winners this year. You know, Sapporo is a European startup. It's not a French startup. It's good to emphasize it because tech is growing in Europe. We are Swiss. And we are delighted to be part of the cohort this year to talk about identity, attack pathways as part of the future of innovations for the protection of infrastructures. Congratulations. Please stay here with us because we're going to have a family photograph at the end. Well, photograph first, a group photograph. And then please stay here because we'll take a photograph of everybody afterwards.
I'd like to now invite the winner of the Research Prize, a company called Idacto, who are going to be accompanied by Alain Bouillet from the jury. Please come up onto the stage. Anyone want to say something?
Oui. Quelques mots.
Yes, just a few words. Thank you very much, the jury, for your recognition. Thank you to Farah, who's not with us, but who brought in exceptional work. Idacto is very proud after, well, France has a high level of skill for digital identity. We're just starting out in Europe. I think it's really important with the wallet topic to have a strong identity and to tackle issues, of course, related to the protection of private data. So Idacto is very pleased. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much, Joe. Just a photograph together. And please stay here so that we can take a large group photograph at the end. Congratulations again.
Is the Growth Award, and it goes to DuoKey. I would like to invite them, plus Yann Bonnet from the jury, to come up here onto the stage. Est-ce que vous avez quelque chose à dire?
Très rapide, en tout cas. Merci.
Yes, very briefly, I'd just like to thank the jury. Sorry, my voice is always a bit hoarse, but I'd really like to thank the jury, my teams who are working very hard, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and also my family for the support they've always given me. And DuoKey, we were very happy to have this growth prize. Today, we've been rolled out, deployed on 4 continents, in China, in the US, Australia, and in Europe. Our clients, we'd really like to thank our first clients who trusted us and who accepted to work with a small Swiss startup at the outset in the luxury area. But now we are one of the biggest providers in the automotive sector for security keys. So well done, DuoKey. Congratulations.
Okay, congratulations to them. I would now like to ask the winners of our Operational Impact Award, Reversense, to come up here onto the stage, accompanied by Olivier Alléman.
Hello, everybody. I'd really like to thank the organisers, the FIC, and the members of the jury, as well as Cyber Booster, who supported us in the incubation process in France, for the prize, and also for bringing retro engineering, which is an area of expertise, for offering a product on a technical topic to allow us to industrialize our product and to have cyber suppliers involved in that. Congratulations.
Okay, please stand over here. And lastly, so we can see here the winners so far, but there's one missing. That is the grand prize. Chris, who has won the grand prize?
You will tell me.
No, I won't. Who is it?
The grand prize
Goes to Snowpack.
Snowpack.
Snowpack, please come up here onto the stage. Come on.
Big one. Félicitations.
We want to thank you, the jury. It's a huge reward for the whole team, but not everyone is here. But because it helps us, making the invisible visible. It's also a reward of our idea that invisibility can be a huge novelty for cybersecurity. The idea behind Snowpack is that if hackers can see you, they can't attack you. And also, like we say in French, pour vivre heureux, vivons cachés. So, try Snowpack. There's something for you also on our website. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations to Snowpack. Let's have everybody in the middle of the stage. All of you. And please stay with us. Let's have everybody for a family photo here in the middle of the stage. Come forward. Maybe un peu plus proche. Thank you very much indeed. Many congratulations to our grand prize winners, Snowpack, and to all the other winners today. A big thank you to the jury as well for their efforts choosing the people who were shortlisted and for handing out the prizes. Thank you very much. Félicitations tout le monde. Thank you. Okay. Up next. Thank you very much. Up next is our first keynote speech of the day, this plenary session rather. We're going to be examining what the next few years might have in store for us in terms of cyber threats. I would like to welcome onto the stage Joan Lepassard, who is the Executive Director of the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA. Please come onto the stage.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back in Lille. I have to put my glasses on. So 2 years have changed and I've become short-sighted. All right. I was asked to tell you about our assessments of the future threats. But before we go to the future, I would like to spend a few words about talking about the past and also about the present. The agency that I represent, the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, is celebrating today its 20th anniversary. So there has been a body at the European level that deals with cybersecurity for 20 years. That's quite a long time because actually 20 years ago nobody knew what the term cybersecurity meant. We were using information security by that time still. So that is something that has changed, thankfully. What has also changed is the intensity and the impact that the agency has at the European level on cybersecurity. And I just bring you one example, and the example is something that you will be all sooner or later faced with, and that is developing and applying European cybersecurity certification schemes. In the past 5 years, the agency has been busy developing these schemes. We've been asked by the Commission to develop the first scheme on common criteria, and the second scheme on cloud, and the third scheme on 5G. One of the winners actually name dropped our next task, which is the e-wallet at the European level. And the heart and soul of these schemes is of course bringing the European expertise together, making sure that these schemes, which will be supplanting the national cybersecurity certification schemes, are understandable, they are usable, and they actually make cybersecurity better. The heart and soul of the team in ENISA who has been dealing with this sits here amongst you. And I want to use this opportunity and actually give a special award, I call it an expertise award, to a jovial Frenchman, Philippe Blanc. Philippe. For his expertise and agility and endurance, because it has been taking us quite a long while to get the schemes out, but as I said, the first scheme is out now. So much about the past and the present. We are also very busy helping member states to implement the NIS2 directive. I'm sure you've all heard of it a bit. And that is an ongoing business where the agency supports the member states to draw up guidelines and make sure that we have a common understanding how best to approach this enormous task. But so much about the past and the present. Now a few words about the future. Today we published our review of our cybersecurity threats 2030, which is a foresight exercise that ENISA has been running for 3 years now. And the aim is really to look not only what are the threats currently. We have a very popular product which is called the Cyber Threat Landscape. I'm sure that most of the people in this room have seen it. But we also look what is around the corner in the midterm and what is around the corner in the long term. So this analysis is really an attempt to map the cybersecurity threats that we see are around the corner. And we use a number of experts across Europe in order to help us to analyze, study, and map this. So I thought that there was a slide, so I hope that we can put it back. And I'll give you the results of it. Just a brief snap. Firstly, the main midterm threat is supply chain compromise of software dependencies. This is actually not a new threat. It still remains very high also from our last year. This is considered as an after effect of the expanding of integration of third-party suppliers and partners in the supply chain, leading to new vulnerabilities and opportunities for attackers. Supply chain attacks can go undetected for a long time, may take months to succeed, are usually targeted, quite complex and costly. So I'll give you a hindsight of the 10, not all of them, but most all of them. You see also AI, but I will not be spending too much time on this. A notable change in the top 10 threat list, and actually a biggest surprise for me, is that the skills shortage has moved to a second place. The shortage of skills, the skills gap, was already marked down as a threat by cybersecurity specialists and experts 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, and a year ago. However, the fact that it has moved higher took us quite by surprise. We need highly skilled professionals with specific expertise to effectively protect against and mitigate the risks. While efforts have been focused on fulfilling the skill shortage challenge, organizational willingness to develop talent and bridge the educational gap remains a huge concern and a growing concern in cybersecurity. ENISA has tried to step in and help. We have developed the European Cybersecurity Skills Framework, which has the potential to help bridge the cybersecurity skills gap by providing a standardized framework for identifying, developing and certifying cybersecurity competencies across Europe. The exploitation of unpatched and out-of-date systems is a new addition to the future threat lists. Managing vulnerabilities and ensuring patches are available protects the end users and helps to ensure security is applied across the whole life cycle of any product. The 2022 edition of the ENISA Cybersecurity Investments Report found that 46% of essential services entities falling under the NIS directive, it takes more than 1 month to patch a critical vulnerability. More needs to be done when it comes to managing vulnerabilities. To this end, ENISA is building a European vulnerability database for publicly known vulnerabilities in ICT products and services. The NIS2 directive establishes a basic framework with responsible key actors on coordinated vulnerability disclosure for newly discovered vulnerabilities across the EU. I mentioned we are busy implementing this now. The combination of national and EU efforts will form the basis for a mature vulnerability disclosures ecosystem within the EU. And the Cyber Resilience Act, which just recently the co-legislators at the EU level concluded, will bring a new element into the play, namely the notification system for actively exploited vulnerabilities. The threat of cross-border ICT service providers as a single point of failure has climbed to the 6th place of our top 10. This is due to growing concerns on the potential threats that can emanate from the growing ICT interconnectedness in critical infrastructure between EU member states. The rise of the abuse of AI threat is considered an expected outcome of the widespread emergence of AI models and the relevant security concerns regarding the growing reliance on AI. The rapid developments in AI include deepfakes, which are particular concern with the EU elections taking place in June of this year. For this reason, ENISA supported the EU member states in the NIS Cooperation Group to update the compendium on elections on cybersecurity. It provides practical recommendations and measures to be used by the EU entities and national authorities that support election security. ENISA undertakes a number of other actions to support measures to ensure secure and trustworthy elections. ENISA, together with partners, organised a cybersecurity exercise on elections to test national and the EU crisis plans and responses to potential cybersecurity incidents affecting the European elections. The agency has produced a checklist for entities and national authorities that support or are involved in elections in order to raise awareness on threats and risks to elections. And to increase the common situational awareness for the community, ENISA shares bi-weekly threat briefs on elections. As the cybersecurity landscape is affected by worldwide challenges posed by the increased severity and frequency of national disasters, fear of future threats on availability of services and critical infrastructure has arisen. Thus, physical impacts of natural or environmental disruptions on critical digital infrastructure is a new threat category that has entered the top 10 threats for 2030. Keeping up with these developments, threats and trends is something we do not do alone. We do that together with our community, with our member states, with our experts. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank INCYBER and the French partners and the European partners for the close collaboration in mitigating the risks and supporting the efforts towards a trusted and cybersecure Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed to Joanne Lepassard, the Executive Director of ENISA. So up next, we're going to be getting the perspectives of the private sector on European regulation. I'd like to invite the CEO of Orange Cyberdéfense, Hugues Foulon. Mr. Foulon, please come onto the stage. Bonjour. So a very warm welcome to Mr. Foulon. Don't worry, I'll be putting the questions to you in French, but we'll be doing the introduction in English. So you are a member of the Orange Executive Committee. You're also the CEO of Orange Cyberdéfense. It's great to have you with us. Let me say a few words about Orange Cyberdéfense. It's a pure cyber player. It's wholly owned by Orange, employing around 3,000 people. Si je dis quelque chose qui est pas vrai, n'hésitez pas à me dire.
If I say anything that is wrong.
Services to customers and businesses around the world. It's got 2 decades of experience in protecting Orange's critical assets. And of course, protecting data is a big part of what you do. So, Hugues, what we want to find out is this. Is Europe still in the race when it comes to the digital revolution and geopolitical upheavals? My first question is, en tant que professionnel...
My first question is, as a professional of the sector, telecom sector for 20 years, what is your vision of the digital revolution at the moment? Hello, everyone, and thank you for having invited me. I think we can all say that there is a permanent digital revolution, quick, accelerated, that concerns our private and professional, even our personal lives. The surface of attack and the digitization is so fast that, of course, there are advantages and very important benefits, which are massive, which are obvious, very often addictive. And these advantages are so good that humanly we have a tendency of forgetting the associated risks or the dark side of the force that can be linked to that. And so we constantly need to spend time, even if it's not very fun, to think about what are the associated risks, what are the intrusions, what are the vulnerabilities that it generates. And there's a number of them in the world today. And so the digital transformation of our lives is picking up speed. If I can just quote one figure that is in the private sphere, do you know what the percentage of couples that are created thanks to the online? It's more than 60%. More than a couple of years ago, it was less than 10%. Now it's more than 60% of couples. Now it has nothing to do with cybersecurity, which shows in the private sphere how much the digitization has picked up speed in our personal lives. Let's talk about world geopolitics. I think you follow this with lots of interest. How do you analyze the recent upheavals? I think that it was already happening for a couple of years. The events of these last months, of these last years, have shown us how much this is present and nearby. This is not far away. No, it's very close at the borders of Europe, the doorstep of Europe, be it in Ukraine or in the Middle East. And all these conflicts show well how much things change quickly. The position of the US has changed recently. Now they're looking more towards Asia and China. Now they're looking again to the Middle East. Maybe we'll go, depending on the result of the elections in the US. What happens in Europe is also key, and what's happening in Ukraine impacts strongly the European unity on the geopolitical aspect. So we are in extremely changing territory, very complex, and of course there are physical upheavals which we can also see at the first, of course, the energy supply, and of course we need to anticipate, or we need to accompany these important movements and these conflicts in the cyber world, in the cyberspace. What links do you make between the geopolitical evil and the digital revolutions? Well, the digital revolution makes that the surface of attack and, of course, the associated threats are increasing and worsen, sadly. So if we take the case of Ukraine, for instance, the physical attacks of February 2022 were preceded by massive cyber attacks in order to weaken the target of what's Ukraine by Russia. What happened in the Middle East, in Israel and the Middle East, There was no previous massive cyber attacks, but then there were impacts that happened afterwards in the cyber with activist attacks that were fairly never seen before, at the level never seen before. So we see this, we see that there is a strong link between the conflictual, physical conflict in the cyber world before, during or after during the different conflicts. And Europe is the target of our conversation this afternoon. What is the role played by Europe, and how has this role evolved over time? I think that one of the first responsibilities of a European, which I am today, is to be clear on everything we've spoken about. What does this mean for Europe? What role does Europe play? Do we want to be master of our own destiny? Do we want to be independent? And that is not easy. I think these are key challenges which we need to meet today, particularly on the technological aspect. We speak a lot about AI. We're speaking a lot about quantum computing. What is the role Europe wants to play in these new technologies? Do we want to run behind the US or China? Or do we want to have our own sovereignty to make our own decisions and master our technology as we managed to have it in the nuclear technology after many years of investment? I think these are key ideas, and for this there's two dimensions on which Europe needs to invest and accelerate. That joins up with what the INCYBER head said. We need to train. We need to bridge that talent gap. We need to have people that are sufficiently trained, that are in quality and in number, so that we're lucid, we're able to defend ourselves efficiently, and we're far from that. And the second point is that we need to invest in technologies and the software world, which is a territory where we are slightly underinvesting chronically for a number of years. So we have troubles being champions in the world, creating champions in the world of software. When you think about the North American software, when you have tens of names, when you think about software giants, European or worldwide, not many names come up. So how can we catch up, and how can we invert the tendency? In the tendency in the cyber market, what do you see as trends as CEO of a leader company in Europe in terms of cybersecurity? Well, we are part of a telecom operator that is an asset, Orange Cyber Defense. We are 100% owned by the group Orange. So we have lots of synergies in the understanding of the threat, in the innovation and the development, particularly on the using AI or the go-to-market in order to distribute our offers to the B2B customers, final customers. So that is a huge advantage that allows us to be a key actor, not just in France, but in about 12 countries around Europe today. So we can see that, and I think that you're all convinced about this, is that this touches all types of activities, so there is no more targeted activity than the others. But no other activity can say I'm spared from the cyber attacks. So be it the finance, the utilities, or the manufacturing, or the public sector, everyone is concerned that what happened with the RIO recently shows that everyone can be a potential target. And the strong trend is that any type of actor of any size is a target. It's not just major groups. It's not just the big, smaller group, and even medium and very small size actors that can be targeted by cyber attacks to try to destabilize or to get cash in ransoms, or to steal data or sensitive information. So, and this is very, very fast. Is Europe, from the business point of view, is Europe an easy and business-friendly? Western Europe represents about 25% of the worldwide market. US 50%. We represent 25%. It's a growing market, 9-10% per year. So it's a prosperous market that is developing. It's growing, but it's very fragmented, very complicated, as you know. There are many languages spoken, many different regulations, even though there's attempts to harmonize these regulations. So this does not make this European market a simple market, but it's a market on which we, as a trusted actor, we need to be present. Are you not 100% dependent of US and Israeli software now we're talking about European sovereignty. How does that bungle? That is a problem that meets with what I said early on the world of software and the development of software in Europe. Our customers are not 100% dependent on the major actors, but they're majority dependent on the American major actors. And today, more than 90% of the partnerships and the propositions that we propose to our customers come from software that are some with research and development labs in Tel Aviv, for instance. Our role is to create a healthy competition and to have European actors and help smaller, medium actors, or sometimes very small actors, when they have a very relevant solution, either in a niche or a disruptive technology, to be able to grow that and propose that to the customer. We are technology agnostic. We have no biases from the start, but our role as European actor, particularly what we call Orange, when the state is an actionnaire, 23% of the Orange Group. It's my role as CEO to favor these national solutions. It's not always easy when it happens. Then we need to think how we can scale this up, and we have an efficient startup. How do we become a scale-up, go from startup to scale-up? I think this is part of a mission of actors like Orange Cyberdefense to work with these French and European actors to scale up. And what is the role of the private business in the implementation of this strategic autonomy in Europe? Well, I think it seems fairly obvious that in terms of cybersecurity, the public sector cannot do everything. You can't expect from the public sector. It's not its role to protect everything everywhere all at once. So, of course, there is room for private actors that we are, but the competition is extremely strong, extremely important. All the European markets where we're present, and we are present in Benelux, in Germany, in the UK, in the northern countries, and in other outside of Europe. All the markets are structured the same way. All the markets are extremely fragmented with a huge competition and a strong technological and marketing innovation, a very strong innovation. So the private sector has a role to play, and where we need to secure, for instance, if I take some public clients of Orange Cyberdefense, hospitals in France, in Belgium, the police forces in Sweden, in Netherlands, we are protected. They are protected by Orange Cyberdefense. Some of these are important law enforcement or military forces, and they call upon private actors because they want to be reactive, they want to be agile, and it's partnership, so we can offer solutions more than public actors. Do you think that sovereignty is a sufficiently strong argument so that customers are going to go towards public European companies and pay the price of it? What do you think of it? You'd have to ask customers that to have a relevant answer. But I think that the world of today forces us to do this, and very quickly. This was something that was not necessarily accepted or recognized very recently, particularly before the beginning of the war in Ukraine. We see now that Europe cannot constantly be a digital colony of the US, so we need to have a certain number of topics where we need a strategic autonomy, and this is going to take time. Of course, everyone thinks about the cloud, but I think that is a necessity, that is an investment, a long-term investment that we need to do. It's a long-term project, but we need to do it, and depending on the awareness of the strategic, do I want my data to be in a trusted cloud, or do I want my data to be kind of everywhere around the world? I think there's a certain number of activities where it's not serious, or some very competitive or very strategic, very confidential data. We need to have a notion of a certain degree of sovereignty, and as for this, the customers will and need and will be accept to pay a premium price. It would not necessarily be exorbitant, but there will be a difference. Do you want your data to be localized, safeguarded, or do you want your data to be on hyperscaler networks everywhere around the world? Maybe maybe there will be a price difference that the customers will be willing to pay. Today, it's not the case, but I think that is the right sense of history, knowing that the world is regionalizing, so we're going to have a logic of groups. The globalization concept is going to be revamped, and I think with the sovereignty will be follow up with that very natural manner. We're talking about regulation, saying the US, China are innovating, and Europe is regulating. Well, what is sure is that in the world of cyber, we are in a phase of today, the big engines for the development of cyber was digitization and the increase of the surface of attack, and of course the increase in threats, the different groups that could attack us. Now, more recently, but very quickly, there's a third acceleration lever that is going to boost the market even more. That is the regulation. That means the companies, and not just the major groups or multinational groups, but also the companies, medium-sized companies, they are going to be in conformity with a certain number of regulations like an IS2 in Europe that is going to be adapted to France. And of course, this means that the things are going faster in the regulation. We can accept this or we can regret this, but it's like that. And for us, for actors like Orange Cyberdéfense, these are opportunities to accompany these companies. Very often they do not know the cybersecurity threats, do not have the talent or the qualified talent, or sometimes not even the talent at all, to be facing these situations. So they will need external suppliers and to help them and accompany them, like Orange Cyberdéfense, in order to be in conformity with these regulations that are going to be important. What is Europe lacking to be playing the game? Well, and to be participating in the race. I think our innovation capacity, our and entrepreneurship capacity is there. We have troubles generating many startups. Once we have the startups, we have a problem with scaling up these startups. We have a financial network that is not the same level as Israel or the US. So how can Europe use these tools to emerge? Many startups that go across the first levels, and their only objective is to sell themselves to US actors. When we're talking about sovereignty, that's maybe good as on a capitalistic point of view from the owners of these startups. When we talk about sovereignty, it's kind of sad, because that means that we're losing decision centers across the pond. So I think there's always this topic of innovation, of being able to create major actors, worldwide recognized actors in the field of software. There's not many of them, not any of them actually. And of course the second point, and I want to insist on what I said earlier, if Europe wants to stay in the race, the training, not just academic training, all forms of training, lifelong training, apprenticeship trainee at all time of the life in your career. We hire more than 600 people per year. That is something that absolutely key, so that Europe stays at the top, else we're going to lose the race. And the last word regarding artificial intelligence and its role on the battlefield. What is the role of cyber war in the worldwide conflicts today? Well, we mentioned it earlier. It's somewhat like there's a kind of a blurring of the lines. It's like as if it's cybercrime is now more politics, and activism is turning more towards cybercrime. So we can see that all types of actions of cyber attacks are happening on the battlefield in different cases. I mentioned earlier these two zones of conflict which we've seen in Ukraine and in the Middle East, and we've seen that every time it's a hybrid warfare, and the continuation of the war in Ukraine is extremely hybrid. So there's a physical war, but it's also associated with lots of technologies, lots of AI, lots of cyber. We think about the drones. There's a whole dimension here. There's no doubt about the fact that there is a mix, a blurring of the line between the physical conflicts that we've been known for the centuries, and then now the cyber dimension that is associated with this, very often to prepare the attack or weaken the adversary, to accompany the offensive, or to strike, or to have a long-term conflict in the field like we have today in Ukraine. Yeah, this is very new, this unknown territories. We have reached the end of this discussion. Do you have a last thing you want to add before we finish? No, I wanted to say that we're very happy at Orange Cyberdéfense to be here, present at the FIC, and beyond just the commercial aspect and the turnover and customers, I think it's really the European mission of Orange Cyberdéfense to build a safer digital society. That is really what interests us. That's how we attract hundreds of young people that come and join us each year at Orange Cyberdéfense. And that is really the mission of an actor like Orange Cyberdéfense, to combine expertise and proximity. Thank you very much, Hugues Foulon, from CEO of Orange Cyberdéfense. Thank you very much.
I would like to invite onto the stage now Wojciech Wierwowski, who is the European Data Protection Officer. He's going to be sharing with us his reflections on data, sovereignty and artificial intelligence. Mr. Wierwowski, welcome.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. So this is Data Protection Authority who came here, which is always a very interesting moment for all the people dealing with cybersecurity. That's my pleasure to discuss with you these topics connected with the current geopolitical changes and the role of artificial intelligence in it, the role of regulation as well in it, and the role that Europe plays here. Let me start by saying a few words about the institution that I represent, especially for those for whom it's not that obvious how the sometimes Byzantic administration of Brussels looks like. So the European Data Protection Supervisor is the independent data protection authority of the European Union, dealing with supervising the institutions, bodies, agencies of the European Union. So, as you know, in every member state there is a data protection authority which is dealing with the market, and we have the 28th Data Protection Authority which is dealing with the institutions. So if you come to Brussels and you have the problems with data protection in the shop or hotel, you go to the Belgian authority with it. But if you have the problem with the institution, with the body, with the agency, even the one like Europol or Frontex, then it's EDPS who is responsible to deal with your complaint. But what is, however, more important for our today's conversation, the EDPS is also responsible as an advisor of the EU institutions in the legislative process. So, starting from the moment when the Commission is preparing the draft of the legal act, going through the whole process of dealing with the European Parliament and the Council, the EDPS is the main advisor from the data point of view, including the personal data point of view. And sometimes we do it together with the European Data Protection Board that is dealing with it because it consists of the data protection authorities from all member states. So while CNIL is helping our French colleagues to do French legislation, Garante does it in Italy, we are responsible for the European legislation. We are not, however, a political body. We are not deciding about the policy of the European Union, although we somehow representing the European Union approach to the data protection and also to the security of information somehow, because as you remember, the principles of data protection from the General Data Protection Regulation includes also those that are about security. Globalization of the markets is a fact at the moment. Almost all the economies, even those most powerful, are subject to the less or more strict regulation, most of them stemming from the European or international standards. Sometimes it's the European Union that does it, sometimes OECD, sometimes multilateral agreements. Regulation is the form of ensuring the fairness and safety. It can also be a form of domination of economies, and it might use the regulation to strengthen what is the role of them. Digital markets, as innovative or unprecedented even in their nature, are no different. What they bring, however, is not only of economic impact, even though it is the technology companies who are one of the biggest in the world. Technologies bring social challenges, they bring non-material impact on individuals, especially those the most vulnerable ones, like children. And the navigating digital markets regulation is therefore not purely the monetary exercise. It's not about taxing income and generated by new technologies. It's not only on banning technologies that threaten the security in our countries. But what is important from my point of view as a data protection authority, the European Union is a community of values, and that is something which I want to say a few words about. Indeed, there was a political decision to be taken, and that's something, or political decisions to be taken, that's something which we have in mind at the moment. We do not want to deal with 27 different markets. We cannot even joke about having different markets in each land of Germany. Indeed, for the most of purposes, the European single market, also for artificial intelligence solutions, shall serve as a common goal. We know it's not easy, but we have 70 years of experience on how to deal with it. I don't like the metaphor of data being the fuel of the new economy, but let me use this metaphor for a while here. In the 1950s, the coal and steel were in the heart of the economical choices. And Europe has made coal and steel community that later evolved into the European Union that we have at the moment. And I'm sure that we need the artificial intelligence community now, and the European Union is ready to take this role. But it does not mean that we want to fight with everyone around. We want just to feel that we are independent, sovereign player in this game. So what is the political decision to be taken? We cannot build our own artificial intelligence market in the isolation from the others. We need to cooperate, we need to find like-minded markets, like-minded countries. Like-minded, yes, like-minded from the economic point of view, but also like-minded from the political point of view. Those who share our values, even if we differ in details, like with UK, like with Japan, like with Canada, or like with the United States. They are the best examples. We shall not be afraid at the same time to say to some countries that we are sorry, but we do not share the values with them. And it will be hard to deal with them, since the development of the artificial intelligence solutions has immense impact, and we observe the fundamental rights. And I'm proud to be European in this field. At the same time, we have to be proud the approach to fundamental rights which we have in the European Union. The real democratic and multidimensional discussion on them. I heard already here a while ago about the kind of saying that China and the US are developing and Europe is regulating. Well, this is not true that only Europe is putting this regulation burden, but we definitely do it differently than the others. What we do have, let's take this artificial intelligence as the example of the regulation. We have Artificial Intelligence Act after 2.5 years of deep discussion. It was, however, preceded by the executive order of American president. So we have also the American executive order. We have the ethical approach from the United Nations. We have the Convention of Council of Europe, almost ready to sign. And look at the process, how the process looked like. Well, the only one which was done in the democratic discussion was Artificial Intelligence Act. There was a discussion of the Parliament, of the Council, the representatives of the people in the Parliament, but also in the NGOs, experts from the civil society. governments, represented by the Council, but also the representatives of business being taken into the discussion, representing their roles. This is not true with the Convention 108, Convention on Artificial Intelligence of the Council of Europe, although they may catch up a little bit in the process of ratification. It's definitely not true also with Executive Order of American President. Well, that was a decree of the President. There was no discussion in the democratic institutions about the text of it. We have the solutions proposed by the United Nations, with the whole respect to the very notable committee that created the UN approach. Once again, no democratical discussion. So this democracy is something which I'm proud as a European and which I would like to keep. And especially because of the expectations that we have towards these technologies. My shaking hand shows that I know how important might be artificial intelligence in the development of the studies in medicine. And I know how important it will be for the everyday life of the Europeans and the people in the world. We have to be ready for the common presence of artificial intelligence, and we have to be ready to be the sovereign player in this discussion. Discussion which includes the discussion about the regulation of new technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Wojciech Wielbiowski, the European Data Protection Supervisor. Please stay with us. I'd like to ask you to take part in an on-stage discussion. Come and have a seat here in the middle of the chairs there. We're going to be looking at what levers of power Europe has at its disposal. I'd like to invite Nicolas Miaille to join us as well here on the stage. Nicolas is the co-founder and the CEO of PrismEval. That's an AI interpretability and alignment company. He's also the co-founder of the independent AI policy think and do tank, The Future Society. Please have a seat. Good to see you. Please. So your microphones are here on the table. Very warm welcome to both of you. So we've got about 20 minutes or so to look at the European levers of power. And when I say levers of power, what do we mean? Well, these are typically understood to mean data, talent, and compute power. So we've got with us one private sector representative, one representative from Brussels. And one of the questions we want to ask is, can Europe become the AI powerhouse that it wants to be? Nicolas, since you've just joined us, can I just ask you to introduce yourself and just tell us what you've been doing with regards to AI governance this past decade or so and what you do now?
Well, thanks a lot for having me, and congratulations on your keynote. I think it was very, very inspiring. So I think you can call me an AI governance pioneer. I've been working in AI governance for the past 10 years. When I started the Future Society, this independent think tank, 10 years ago, even more, people thought we were nuts to think about and to talk about and to work on the governance of AI. And now that we have an EU AI Act and we have a G7 code of conduct and we have a regulation in China and we have an executive order in the US, suddenly it doesn't look anymore as if we were as crazy as some would think, because the velocity of the technologies is very high. I'm involved in many high-level expert groups, GPA, OECD. I've also been working with the Commission. And I decided to step down from my role at the helm of TFS at the end of last year to start a new Paris-based company called PrismEval, which is trying to advance the field of AI cognitive sciences, developing a range of solutions on the interpretability and the evaluation of state-of-the-art AI models, profiling their behaviors, profiling their cognitive abilities, profiling potential dangerous capabilities, and rendering those solutions as automatic and real-time as they can be, therefore building on top of the EU Act and trying to create value on top of the regulation that is created. And we think it's extremely important because the underlying techno-scientific cocktail of this modern AI revolution is not robust and is totally uninterpretable. So we have a vested interest and therefore value to be created and shared with investors, shared with customers, to render these black boxes more interpretable and more robust. And it's very difficult to do.
Okay, thanks for that intro. And Wojciech, I know we've just heard from you, but if there's anything you'd like to say in addition about who you are or react to what Nicola has said.
Well, as I said, I'm the European Data Protection Supervisor, and I work before as the National Data Protection Authority, so also looking at this from the national perspective. But I'm also the academic from the University of Gdansk, and I was a practitioner because I actually started in the 90s as a data miner, and it was really fun. If we think about the current development, I always think about the Disney movie Madagascar 2. You probably remember King Julian from this movie, and his famous quote, "Hurry up before we all come to our senses." And this is actually the call that we sometimes hear. Let's not think about the real reasons, let's not think about why we do the things and what might be the dangers of the things, but let's go ahead. Let's forget about the time.
And that whole issue of urgency is linked to my next question to you, which is, of course, you are the guardian of data protection here in Europe, and I want to talk to you about the values. What are the values at the core of what you do? And how do you reconcile the importance of values to this race against time, in the sense of urgency? Do we still have time to be talking about values?
Yes, and everybody is talking about values, or everybody is using their values. This is not true that you don't have values in the American approach. You don't think that also the Chinese are not using the values. We may differ in the approach to the fundamental rights. These are the differences that we can see with our American friends, but actually the values that are these fundamental rights are based on are the same. But it may also happen that we have completely different set of values to be realized, and that's something which I felt and saw for many years in our contact with Russia, where we theoretically had very similar legal grounds for the discussion, but the values were different. The rules were the same, the values on which they are based were completely different, and that led to the differences between us. So let's say the discussion on values is going on. We should simply not close our eyes on it.
Nicola, I want to ask you, because you wear a private sector hat, so much regulation to implement and enforce. I mean, what do you make of all of that?
We have met a huge bet on the future of Europe. We have decided to constrain ourselves with a series of rules to align the market that we desire and the future society that we desire with our values. I think that's extremely brave, but requires a lot of intelligence and a lot of courage in how we are going to implement that. In other words, implementing those DSA, DMA, EUA, DGA represents a huge challenge to align the market in practice. We should fear, in a way, bureaucracy, respect public administration, and translate that in things that can work for innovators and industrial players in Europe. So, for example, concretely, what does that mean? When I look at the emerging EUA office, which will be tasked with, for example, coordinating the evaluation of foundation models, so-called general purpose AI systems, I see this as a huge opportunity to create a level playing field across Europe and export the Brussels effect or regulation. I also see an immense challenge to bring the right level of competence within the European Commission on these domains which are state-of-the-art. And talent is so scarce, and the market rewards it so well, that it won't be so easy to equip public administration with the level of talent that is required. Some would respond, okay, let's establish public-private partnership. I agree with that. But that won't work, including on the conflict of interest part, if we cannot establish within public administration a cadre of people who understand what a large language model is, how it is pre-trained, fine-tuned, the value chain, how it becomes an agent, and the underlying techno-scientific challenge. That won't be easy. If we do that, however, then we have, I think, an immense opportunity to create AI in Europe for Europe. What I mean by that is, we Europeans thrive on the mastery of safety critical functions. Look at Boeing versus Airbus. Look at Siemens, Bosch, Stellantis. We thrive where we have safety critical functions. And so we need to engineer the encounter between the world, the industrial world of the Stellantis and Airbus, and modern AI, which is not right now robust and secure. If we, through the regulation and its implementation, create the incentive so that those who develop and deploy these models invest a lot more to render these models more robust, then we'll be able to equip Airbus in the next generation competition with Boeing with trustworthy AI. That's the promise. But that will not happen by chance. It requires immense investment in industrial policy, innovation policy, science policy, and deploy in a very smart way. That's not easy where you have so many countries with so many diversity to coordinate, or single common market is not so singular. Is not so integrated. We have still a lot more to do. Like, we don't speak the same language, or one thing are different. So the challenge in implementations are immense. We have been brave to pass regulation. Let's now be brave to and held accountable to how smartly we are going to implement it to equip and enable citizens, consumers, and innovators to make the best out of them.
Wojciech, could I ask you to respond to that if you want to? And also just, I mean, as the regulator, you must be aware of all these voices that say, you know, Brussels is excessively interfering, there's excessive regulation. I mean, what do you say to people who hold that opinion?
Well, of course, I hear it. Moreover, sometimes I share this idea and share this observation that there are the acts in the European Union law which I don't see as the most important and the most groundbreaking. But at the same time, I have to say that, first of all, the regulations in these fields are existing all over the world, and the European ones are at least trying to be renovated together with the technologies and to try to fill this gap that exists here. But I agree at the same time that while Europe has the good chance to create the strong approach to artificial intelligence and especially to foundation models, the filling the institutions, filling the also the private bodies like the chambers of commerce with the proper knowledge and proper skills to deal with it will not be an easy task, and is probably the biggest challenge. Also, enforcement of these laws is something that we have to deal with. I always remember the old saying from one of my friends from industry who said that the definition of hell would be the European law with American enforcement, showing that while Europeans are good in creating the theory, the practice may look better in the other places. But at the same time, I would not divide these markets that much, especially those on the other side of the Atlantic and those European ones. While we can think about borders in the world of hardware, in the world of even these Boeings and Airbuses, it's much harder with the data. And I know it quite well, being the Data Protection Authority and still thinking about transfers of data between the zones, knowing at the same time that these are not physical transfers of any goods, it's simply the access which is deciding.
And Nicola, I'm building up this impression in my mind where we've got this situation, we've got the rules of the game versus the art of the game. Do you think we can make these two dynamics work to Europe's advantage?
Well, we have no option but to try hard enough, because indeed we're trying to define the rules of the game, not mastering the art of the game. So we need to spend a lot more time and investment on mastering the art of the game. I'll give you a concrete example of policy-wise what would be needed. We have a monopoly on the GPU semiconductor, brilliantly led by NVIDIA, getting the reward of early investments in some people made fun of 15 years ago, video games. And so now they're enjoying the lucrative monopoly of GPUs, and so it's a scarce resource. What do we do to make sure that all innovators, or industrial players, or developers have access to the required volume and quality of GPUs that they need to build the innovations? It's a scarce resource. What can we do? Well, for example, we did, as European, pool or ordering of COVID vaccine when there was another scarce resource years ago. Can we do something similar for GPUs and confront this industrial monopolist with pooled requirements and say, let's negotiate on a bigger amount right now? That's the kind of things where, as an example, very practical example, we need to be a bit more active to compensate the constraints, the straitjacketing of our own practice we're inflicting to ourselves because we believe in our values. Now we need to walk on two legs. So that's we have to work a lot more on the out of the game. That's why I said before, innovation policy, industrial policy, science policy, and infrastructure, as a matter of fact, knowing well that we won't be able to do that without a transatlantic partnership. Let's just be honest about that too. We have to work with the Americans. How we work with them, for example, with NVIDIA, and how we leverage the size of our market and the ability to export our rules, as you said, I don't think it's a coincidence that the executive order was passed right in the middle of the trilogue of the UA Act. I don't think it's a coincidence that the G7 Code of Conduct was by Japan, which is a very good instrument, a soft law instrument, was published right at the same time. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bletchley Park, the UK AI Safety Summit, was organized right in the middle of the trilogue. It means that we have weight, we have impact. Now it's what we make out of it to equip our industrial players and our innovators.
Yeah, our cartoonist has been sketching in the corner over there, and I saw just a moment ago a design that he put up on the screen. I don't know if we can put it back again, but I was just curious to see what's been put up there and to see what your reaction is. On peut le montrer à nouveau voilà. Data sovereignty and artificial intelligence. We're talking about values here in Europe. We've got a democratic approach, a lack of training skills. Does that conjure up any ideas in your mind? What do you think?
Well, I would say that this democratic process is something which I would like to stress again. We said about executive order, we said about the UN declaration that has been prepared, and no discussions about them in the democratic way, no discussion and no debate between all stakeholders, all the participants. So these 2.5 years, which led from the initial draft of the Commission to the very different legal act which was created at the end, is the example how difficult it is to do something from scratch, and how important it is to have all the sides involved in it. So I would stress once again that strength of this European approach is not that Europe is superpower, but that Europe knows how to discuss and knows that the answers are not binary. But there are at least 27 partners that you have to deal with, not even thinking about the industry or the civic society. And let me also add to that Europe have to be sovereign at the same time, not in the meaning of the borders, but of the meaning being able to negotiate with the entities from outside. So I'm always threatened if I see that European Union or European institutions which I'm dealing with have to agree on the solutions that are given from outside without any discussing on them, because there is no alternative for them. So to be sovereign means to be possible partner for negotiation.
Nicolas, do you think that Europe can really afford an ambition to become a superpower? And if so, what's the price it would have to pay?
I think we need to move away from that framing of superpower. Let's be humble. Let's really look for more autonomy, strategic autonomy, as opposed to superpower. Because we can't afford to be a superpower. We can't afford to be more autonomous. We can afford to serve our citizens better. We can afford to protect our democracies. I think that the state of the American democracy right now demonstrates damn well why it's important to seek to put our values first to protect our democracies. There is in big danger right now for very many reasons. So long as we dilute a bit the framing, I think there is so much to accomplish. Now, there is a price to pay. And the price to pay is to seek to deliver a higher level of integration of our financial markets. Europe is good at research. at innovation, at industry. What we're not good at is at scaling the innovation onshore because we lack the financial, the capitalistic firepower. We're good in Series A, good in seed, Series B, C, but beyond, we can't put on the table private capital of several billions. This is well identified as a problem in France, for example. Our government is working on it, but it won't be solved by France alone. We have to come together. And it's so difficult to integrate, for example, our pension system. Life insurance on the one hand, totally private, capitalistic, and totally public or socialized across the border. So delivering a more unified capitalistic market is extremely difficult technically and even more politically when our citizens right now demand less of Europe and more of the nations. And you'll see the results of the forthcoming European Parliament elections. I don't think that they are going to demand a wave of federalism. So given the context, I think that what has been accomplished with the EU Act is not bad. What needs to be accomplished now is, for example, unifying our capitalistic market so that a company, for example, like Mistral AI or like Horse can continue to raise capital here in Europe and operate and serve the European market first in a way that rewards the investors, in a way that works for a reasonable capitalistic model. And that is not something that we have right now, as to give you a practical example of the price to pay to afford more ambition, not even to talk about superpower. I don't know of a superpower without the military, to be clear.
Just before we finish on the subject of superpowers, anything you would like to add to what we've just been saying there, Wojciech?
When we think that we should have more national power than the European power, we have to remember that these acts, these legal solutions that are created as people say in Brussels and Strasbourg, they are mainly created by the representatives of the member states. The trialogue is actually more the dialogue between the Council and the Parliament which is elected by us, which we will be electing just in few weeks. And at the same time, the second partner is the Council, who represents the governments. These are not anybody else but the representatives of the government. Only Commission is something which may be treated as European only, because they should represent the interest of the common market. So these are the solutions that we do as the countries, these are the solutions which we do as the voters, and that's why the elections are also that important.
Yeah, and of course with regards to the next Commission and the next term, I mean, what are your predictions for their implementations of the EU Act?
I have no rights to predict how the Commission will look like, okay? That's the first thing. But I know that we need leaders, and we need leaders that will understand the digital market, that will understand the dangers which may come to this market and to this society, and which understand what the cybersecurity is also for. So this kind of leaders, we should look, we should search, we should promote, but well, it's hard for me to say how the political agreement will look like after the elections and after the proposals given for the new commissioners.
Okay, and just going back to what you were talking about earlier on as well, I mean, what can we expect and what should we fear and what can we hope for with regards to this next European Commission then?
Vis-à-vis AI, I think, and I'm going to put a little joke here, we're used to saying business as usual is not a solution. Here, public administration as usual is not a solution, unfortunately. The velocity at which AI is moving, the level of capital infusion, the level of integration, the market, the value chain is emerging right before our eyes. And it's being captured in so many ways. And it's not falling from the sky. It's emerging from the ground of the last 15 years of platform economy, attention economy, data economy, and now token economy. And so it's, in my opinion, and I'll grant I'm biased heavily, of strategic importance, strategic autonomous importance, to make the way in which we are going to implement the EU Act, in a way, an exception, by not running public administration as usual, disrupting departments and directorate generals where they need to be disrupted to have this regulation implemented in an agile and competent way. And I say that, for example, in the regime of salary. Can the Commission pay the same salaries of OpenAI? No. what can we do to make that happen or get close to that? People will come to the Commission because there are some young fellows in this continent who are passionate about their values, passionate about their citizens, and they will serve. But there is a limit. So giving them a bit more power, in other words, and I say that very respectfully because we need bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is also a sign of democracy, but we need a bit less bureaucracy. We need to be agile, and it's difficult. It's extremely difficult at that level. So can we render the implementation of the EU Act an exception? Can we empower this EUA office with the best that Europe has to offer in terms of computer science and engineering talents? That should be what we hope for. And what we fear is the exact opposite, is in a way implementing the EU Act as another digital regulation. It's not. It's the fate, it's the challenge of a generation, really.
I can see some more cartoons being put up there as well. So do have a look at them. If you've got anything you'd like to add or comment on, don't hesitate. We're sort of coming to the end of the discussion, but I wanted to ask you, Wojciech, before we do. I mean, of course, with the growth of AI comes the need for the growth and evolution of regulation. Everyone admits that. I mean, how do you think Europe is doing when you compare it to other regulators around the world?
You mean with AI or generally?
With AI, generally.
Well, with AI, we know what we have. We have a very, 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 very long act. The act which actually sometimes is like a book and which tries to explain at the same time what Europe thinks about the dangers which may come and what is the solution to be realized. But as it was said here, the implementation will be the most important thing. So I would say we have the very good ground and the benchmark regulation on that. The regulation which is different than the American one, because American one is theoretically directed only to the public administration, only to those who are under the president, but in fact non-directly is touching the companies which are going to have the contracts with the government. And we made the long, hard to read, but quite well established legal ground, and now we have to find a way to implement it in the practice.
Okay, just before I give you the last word, I'd like to just ask Nicolas to give me his final thoughts, his final message before we wrap this session up.
As I said, first, Europe should not try and frame itself as superpower. It fuels populism even more. Okay, so let's find the right framing for who we are. Project of peace, the result of 2 world wars, the most ambitious exercise in transnational democracy with the European Parliament, which was able to deliver on the floor for the UE Act a majority of over 70%. From a democratic perspective, that's a dream. That's a dream that our American allies can't afford. So that's social capital, that's something. So I think the moment we frame it in a bit of an undertone way, not power but a strategic autonomy, we have a lot more that we can do. And again, it's going to be about how we can evaluate. That's why I do Prism Eval, how we can evaluate, profile, and we need an ecosystem for that. We need public and private investment for that. And it's going to be the key to have a dynamic equilibrium in how we implement, but also how we enforce the rules. Yes, the EU Act is based on fines, but there is a family of obligations, including liability, that are going to hit the market, how implementation happens, but also how the enforcement is done and calibrated, and who gets hit and for what is, I think, going to be important. It's going to require, as I said, a lot of competence and understanding of what AI really is, not AI washing, AI reality. And it's not easy to understand because it's moving fast, and it's in a way so concentrated in 2 or 3 cities in the world these days.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Nicolas. And Wojciech, your reaction, your final thoughts?
Well, I would give one more example from the past. When we had the discussion about the General Data Protection Regulation, we always heard, please do not over-regulate. We, industry, know better how the business model looks like and how they work. So do not try to impose it on us. Rather, give us principles, and we know why the principles should be realized. That was the accountability principle. And then, when the GDPR went into force, there was a big call, where are the templates? Where are the checklists? Where are the guidelines? And the answer was, there will be no checklists. There will be no templates. There will be hardly any guidelines, because you know better how to deal with it. So it means also that the regulation, the real regulation of the market, is something which is not the challenge only for the legislator. It's the challenge for the chambers of commerce, for the representatives of business, those who create codes of conduct, those who create certification schemes, those who create the standards or de facto technical regulations.
The EU AI Act is a brave act. Do you agree?
Yes, indeed it is.
Nicolas?
Yes, it is a brave act if we put into the implementation of it as much bravery to vanquish the ghosts of some of the ghosts of public administration or conflict of interest or cronyism, because we've seen that because there are so many big actors like big tech, they can do really good lobbying too. So it has to be brave till the end.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed to our two speakers, Wojciech Wiewiorski and Nicolas Millet. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it is no secret that American tech companies have had a position of global dominance for several years now. Well, there's a growing number of voices here in Europe that want to see a counterbalance to that dominance. In fact, that's the topic of some pretty intense discussion in Brussels. Let's take a closer look now.
Depuis le début des années 2000, les géants américains de l'informatique ont transformé en profondeur les marchés des secteurs clés comme celui des smartphones, du cloud et du logiciel. En 2023, grâce à l'essor de l'IA, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon et Meta ont vu leur capitalisation combinée dépasser les 10 000 milliards de dollars. Nvidia et OpenAI, soutenus par Microsoft, très actifs sur le marché de l'IA générative, viennent compléter cette domination mondiale. Ce monopole fait l'objet d'âpres discussions à tous les échelons européens. En France, des voix s'élèvent pour contrebalancer la domination des alliés américains, notamment par la commande publique.
On a tenté un truc, on a tenté l'Airbus du cloud avec Gaïa. Ça s'est malheureusement craché. Je pense que Gaïa est en mort cérébrale, je le dis depuis quelques temps, et je vois pas de pic d'activité revenir. Quand le président l'avait dit pour l'OTAN, il s'était trompé. J'espère que je ne me trompe pas sur Gaïa en disant ça. Mais non, je pense qu'il faut effectivement qu'on puisse doper ces compétiteurs européens en leur adressant de la commande publique. C'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui, tout le monde dit, bah oui, mais les Américains, les cloud providers américains sont tellement bons qu'on n'a pas l'équivalent. Oui, mais on n'a pas demandé à nos cloud providers européens suffisamment de choses en termes de contrats pour avoir une relation client-fournisseur.
En France, l'écosystème autour de l'IA s'organise, à l'instar d'entreprises comme Hugging Face et Mistral AI. De son côté, le français Lighton cherche lui aussi à se faire une place sur ce marché très concurrentiel, dominé principalement par les Américains.
Alors, c'est clair qu'il y a une course qui est absolument folle, et je ne sais pas si les Européens et notamment les Français peuvent jouer la première division, mais en tout cas, je pense qu'on peut tout à fait tenir notre rôle.
Mais dans l'univers de la tech, tout va très vite. Celui qui était jusqu'ici présenté comme le principal acteur français, Mistral AI, a signé le mois dernier un partenariat de distribution avec Microsoft. De quoi poser question quant à sa légitimité en tant qu'acteur européen et surtout sur la capacité de l'Europe à conserver ses talents.
Okay, my next guest here on the stage is Antoine Borde. He's the Vice President of Artificial Intelligence at the defense AI company Helsing. Hello, very nice to meet you. Let's fasten. Okay, so national defense used to be all about tactics, the size of your army, the amount of military hardware you had. But in recent years, it's increasingly become an issue of the quality of your technology that you've got at your disposal, also the software that runs it. Let's find out a little bit about AI and what role that can play in protecting our democracies. Antoine Borde, you are the Vice President Artificial Intelligence at the defense AI company Helsing. That's a European multi-domestic firm with operations, I gather, in Germany, France, the United Kingdom. Just tell us briefly a little bit about your company, Helsing, for those here who don't know much about it.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Speaking English with a French accent. I guess you'll notice that. So I'm French in a European company that's been built to protect our democracies. I think it was said just before by the previous panelists. You know, this is something that we should work on before trying to go beyond that. It's important to realize that democracy needs to be protected. And it starts by military, starts by defense. And so that's the thesis of everything that was created 3 years ago on the basis that AI is going to change the way we do military and we do defense. So it was even before the second Ukraine invasion, actually, that it was created. So AI is that. The thesis is software and AI are changing the way we do defense, and to be able for Europe and European democracy to be in the race, we need to attract the best AI talent to work on this problem, and that's what we do. So Helsinki, France, Germany, UK, trying to attract the best talent to serve our democracy through AI.
Okay, and how did you find yourself in this space to begin with, Anton?
Yeah, so before joining Helsinki last year, I've been actually the documentary before sounded a bit familiar because I spent almost 10 years at Meta, then Facebook, where I was in the AI research lab. So part of this talent that have been joining American companies. Proudly so at the time, and I would say last year and even 2 years ago, I realized two things. First off, as I said, we cannot sit still with regard to what's happening, and a company like Helsinki offered the opportunity to try to do the best or try to serve democracy with what I could do. You know, I do AI, right? So I could not go and serve for something else. But we want to build a company that through AI, through a talent, can make a difference. For me, it was very important. The wake-up call of the Ukraine invasion, of course, was extremely important in that matter. And I would say that the second aspect that really drove me also in this is the European aspect of it, right? I want also to contribute to building European champion. I'm a strong believer that we can do it. But we need to act on it and to join. And so there are some efforts. Some were mentioned in the previous segment. Helsinki, one of them. We have the ambition to also become a world-class AI company.
Okay, and what's the relevance of AI when it comes to the defense sector then?
Yeah, so you need to realize that. So AI is Helsinki is focused mostly on like real-time embedded AI system. So we are not so much doing like cyber defense or cyber attacks. We are on the battlefield, closer to what the weapon are used and the soldiers are there. And so you have to realize that on there, data is plentiful. You have radar, you have satellite imaging, you have reconnaissance drone that can be using like visual, but also cameras, but also infrared, plus all the data that was acquired to prepare the mission, plus everything else. It's actually terabytes of data that you have access to. The challenge is that you don't have necessarily the right software to deal with this data. And so the thing in defense and on the battlefield in particular, speed is the key. Okay, the faster you can act, the faster you can take an advantage. Okay, and the thesis with AI is that with AI models, you can process this data faster than you could do before. And so if we can produce like better intelligence algorithm to treat this data almost in real time, we give an edge to the military forces, especially ours, and this edge, they can use it to take the best decision and to be faster than the opponent.
Okay, so they've got all this data that's coming in from all over the place, a very complex situation on the battlefield. They've got to process it in real time, make the right decisions. Give us an example of how a soldier might use AI and take advantage of it. What would be a situation?
Yeah, I can even give you two examples for the price of one. The first example is very, very concrete. It's based on aircraft and fighter jets. Okay, so existing ones, right? We have to realize that AI and software can upgrade a lot of the existing military devices as well. Sometimes people think that, we need to wait for the new generation of fighter, the new generation of weapon. No, you can actually retrofit a lot of the existing one. And for instance, the current fighter jet, they have software and computer on that to do what is called electronic warfare, which is used to basically try to read in real time what are the radars that are seeing me. okay, which is extremely important when you're flying an aircraft, especially if you're close to enemy borders. This task can looking at what we call the electromagnetic fog. You have plenty of radars around you, and you need to differentiate who is who, and who is potentially a radar that I don't know or that I know is an enemy. This task requires to deal with terabytes of data every second. Okay? The thing is, the new radars are generating more complex patterns, they're generating more data, and so we need to also up-level the quality of the algorithm that are on the fighter jet to treat with this data in real time. That's where AI can come in, right? I mean, you're using maybe speech recognition, you're doing algorithm that can do a lot of video processing, you hear about Gen AI. Well, this method cannot be readily used, but a lot of the advances that have been made in the civilian sector, they can go there. But we need companies that can do that, and that's what we do. The second example, maybe, is in France we talked a lot about the Caesar cannon. The Caesar cannon actually very wonderful cannon, works extremely well, extremely precise. But the main thing for them to be useful is to know and to decide where they need to shoot. Okay, when they know where to shoot, they can be very, very accurate and very precise. But knowing where to shoot, once again, I have a lot of data, I'm sending drones, I'm sending a satellite imaging, I need to combine that. This is where we feel that we can augment the capacity of the Caesar cannon with AI, not by telling the cannon to shoot or tell them to shoot faster, but by telling them where to shoot faster by processing the data in real time. And I can tell you on the battlefield, if you're in Ukraine, for instance, 10 minutes, half an hour faster to find a target, this is actually a huge, 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 huge win.
Okay, so basically it sounds like you can have the best military hardware in the world, but without the right tech, without the help of AI, well, at least AI being on your side, you're pretty vulnerable, aren't you?
Yeah, so that's basically I would say the main reason why I'm here maybe is that it's not like AI is a nice to have and software is a nice to have. It's becoming a must have because really the gap is widening, and what we see in Ukraine is actually this gap is widening day after day. And when I say day after day, it's literally day after day, which means that the use of AI and software require timescale and iterations that are actually on the order of a week, a month, maybe a trimester, right? Every trimester you can see that there's a new way that actually war is performed, especially on the ground in Ukraine, because you use more drones, because you use more software, because there is more like jamming for the drones, so you need to go backfire this extra. This is actually extremely fast. So the innovation cycles are in weeks or in months. The issue is that traditional defense programs are in years or in decades. Okay, so there's something that needs to be cracked there. It's not just like we need to bring new technology, it's that there's also a new way to think about how we procure military equipment, because once again, we cannot wait for the next generation, we can do upgrades, right? I mean, every one of you, I assume you have phones, smartphones, you can see the upgrades, they are maybe weekly or maybe monthly, depending on that, right? So this is new capabilities. We are discussing somewhere, and I think in this forum it's actually very clear to people that are working on the cloud business, right? This is actually thousands of updates every month that you push on the cloud for security, for reliability, etc., right? On the battlefield, they do maybe an update for the fighter jet half-life, which is they're supposed to fly for 20 years. We do an update after 10 years, right? Well, when you go in software, no, you don't want for 10 years, right? So we need to change that, right? The example I like to take is the Rafale program, which we are very proud as well, right? The Rafale was more or less the case for the Rafale was made in the 70s. The first Rafale in operation was in the 2000s. Okay, so it's more like 30 to 35 years between the idea and the operation, right? So this is a fighter jet. We cannot use the same type of cycles when we talk about AI and software.
Okay, how do you think Europe is doing in this regard?
So I think it's been said also in this room a bit before. I think there's a bunch of argument that we have. We have the people. Some of them are at Helsing, we have more of them. Some of them are in other companies. Universities are strong, it was even said just before. And it's pretty clear. I think we have also many of assets because we have strong defense companies to build hardware assets, historical companies. You know, I mentioned the Caesar, I mentioned the Rafale. These are actually very nice platforms, so we can build on that. But we need to not to slow this down. We need actually to accelerate that, right? And to accelerate that, we need to make like maybe partnership faster. And we need also, and it was mentioned also a lot of the time today, the regulation aspect. I think we are not against the regulation, but we need to make sure that the regulation makes that the AI ecosystem in Europe is very fertile. Okay, it's very fertile. The defense sector is not affected as the other sector by regulation, but we are very connected with the AI ecosystem in Europe. So this ecosystem, the more this ecosystem is thriving, attracting talent, building technology, being ahead, the more we're actually going to benefit from that. So we're actually very tightly coupled, and we should not forget that.
I'm just looking at this cartoon that has been produced in the last couple of minutes. I mean, does this roughly sum it up, the situation on the battlefield, where there's all this information coming in, and without AI, you just don't have the advantage, do you?
Yeah, it's exactly that, except that Helsing has only one L, so it's not hell, but maybe it's... but yeah, it's exactly this. We need the partnership between the software and the hardware to actually gain advantage of the battlefield.
Okay, so you've mentioned Ukraine quite a few times, and obviously it's been something of a wake-up call, hasn't it, for this continent. What have been the lessons that have been learnt?
Yeah, so as I said, very, very big wake-up call for me and for many of the people who joined the company. I guess for many other people in this room, no need to talk too much about this again. But I feel in terms of, I cannot share everything we learn about Ukraine, but I think just the one lesson is that we learn a lot and we learn often. Okay, and only that is quite a big news, which means that when I say we learn a lot and we learn often, is that the new lessons are coming really every month, right? There's this new way of jamming, and if you were at the round table earlier today about autonomous weapon and strike drones, etc., there was actually a lot of things in terms of what's ongoing. Thierry Berthier was mentioning stuff of last week. He was mentioning stuff of like 2 months ago, right? So this is extremely, extremely frequent. And so the first lesson is that, as I said, we need to react as fast as well. The Ukrainian, they move fast because they must. It's a matter of survival for them, but I think even for us, in I would say second order. But also, so we need to change the speed. I think the second aspect I would say is that the big traditional defense company, they have a lot of assets. I think an asset that we can offer a smaller company is speed of execution. Okay, we are built with the DNA of tech company. The people at Helsing, they come from Meta, they come from Amazon, they come from Google, they come from startup. They are built to work on software. Helsing is just doing software. When you just do software, and I think many people in this room know that, you can go way faster than when you need to integrate with hardware, produce hardware, build hardware. Let's use this as a strength. Okay, the speed that we can build is adapted for software. Let's build that as partnership with like hardware procurement and hardware builders, so that we can use the legacy and the knowledge we have to build aircraft carriers, frigates, aircraft. But on the other hand, we can upgrade with fast turnaround and fastly updatable software, and in particular AI models.
So we've got to update quite a lot of things, and one of the things you said a little earlier on is we have to update how we update, in the sense that when we procure new equipment, we need to rethink that process and really speed it up.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that and when we're engaging with, once again, we're in 3 countries, so we engage a lot in terms of how we can procure defense, how we do that. And we see that things are changing, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago now, the new agency for AI in defense in France was announced, right? And I think one of the messages that was announced as part of this is like, we want to work in AI, not the way we work with other material. We want to go faster. So I think this is working. But I feel also beyond speed, because I mentioned speed quite a lot, it doesn't mean also that you are careless and you don't care, right? It's actually also a way that needs to be done properly. And I think what works quite well in software is also the test and learn, right? We go, we test, we adapt, we improve, we go, we test, we adapt, we improve. While this is very natural in software, we should also bring this really pretty well-known method in the defense sector as well, maybe in some domain, etc. So that's the first thing. The second thing for us at Helsing, which I really, really believe in, is like working with case studies and specific cases. You know, I gave you 2 cases, right? They're actually on the drawing, right? We need to do that. Starting to have an approach that say, we're going to build an AI platform that can do smart software, that can do AI decision, etc., without actually going to the detail in terms of what kind of signal, what kind of use case, is it actually needed, right? We can do a lot of stuff that are actually not needed because this is not what the soldier need at the right moment, would be a mistake because we don't have time to waste. So it's very important that working with the forces, working with the procurement agency, this is really this partnership also like identifying the best place to put our chips, right? Because we have assets, but we don't have a ton of chips, right? People and money and cycles. So let's be smart and test and learn. And if it doesn't work out, pivot. Once again, this is a software attitude.
Okay, we're coming to the end. Any last thoughts before we wrap up? Anything you'd like to say that you haven't?
No, I must say that it's my first time coming at the FIC, so it was a great learning. I feel that the AI wave is catching up, right, as well, beyond. At Helsing, we work mostly with, like, as I think you saw in terms of platform, like aircraft, drones, so really meeting the software and the physical world, which require like a lot of challenges and new way of integrating. I think there's also a lot of challenges that I haven't touched upon, like software against software, right? Where AI and generative AI are completely challenging this, and so a lot of learnings for me here about that.
Okay, well, it's been great having you with us. Thank you very much indeed. Antoine Borde, the Vice President of Artificial Intelligence at the defense AI company Helsing, with 1L. Thank you very much indeed to you.
Thank you.
We're coming to the end of this afternoon plenary session. Our next closing speech, in fact, is going to be one in which we examine the extent to which AI is reshaping geopolitics. That's with Tariq Karim, the writer, the tech entrepreneur and inventor, and also the founder of Cybernetica.fr. That's a think tank which navigates the uncertainty of tech and geopolitics. Tariq, please come up onto the stage. Hello. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good. Hi, everyone.
So Tariq is here. I just want to say, I mean, I think it would be hard to find someone more passionate about tech, the online universe, and all the other subjects we've been talking about today, because Tariq has been online since the 1980s. That's long before I think most people even knew what that meant. And last year, Tariq, you talked about how there's more than one internet. It's splintering into lots of different environments. What additional changes is generative AI bringing to this so-called splinternet?
Oh, so many things. I believe the presentation I'm going to do is basically amplifying the best, but also amplifying the worst. And one of the interesting moments is that this technology has been around for some time, but we are in a very interesting paradox. I would say as an entrepreneur, it's the biggest internet boom or tech boom in decades. And in the meantime, the geopolitical world is in shambles. So it's going to be interesting to navigate. Maybe I should...
yeah, come and stand in the center here.
How do I do to move to the first slide? Or is it... okay, perfect.
There you are. You're away.
So last year, I would say every year for the last 3 years, I've been doing this presentation, the state of the splinternet, and I'd like to give you a preview of the 24th edition. So basically, the question right now is technology has been always a place where everything is easy, and usually when you think out of the box, you think out of the box in terms of technology. But the problem is we're living now in a world where if you don't understand geopolitics, you cannot understand where tech is going. And if you don't understand tech, you don't understand where geopolitics is going as well. So the problem is we need to be in a very large scope. I mean, what used to be a very interesting centralization happened in the 70s with the mainframe. It was also the time where the Soviet and the US was basically fighting through the early days of technology. Then the web kind of made it, first of all, it made it available for each of us. And in the same time, a new form of war started. We sometimes used to talk about duality, you know, where you have a clear military use of a technology and clear civilian use of technology. Now, we're in the year of hybrid. Both things are melted in the same thing. And one of the questions, of course, is where it will go. So for me, as you know, it's a sad moment for me, but the reason I started to really think about things going bad and losing my optimism was the 13th November and the Paris attacks, where I was lucky not to lose my life, but I lost many friends. And I started to look at the internet, social network, in a very, very different way. I usually call the era we're in French, le numérique de l'incertitude, but this era of digital uncertainty. When you think about it, before everything was simple. You go to the cloud, it's great. You use AI, it's great. You're using technologies, any of the technology, everything is great. That's the future, no problem. Now everything we do is a problem. Extraterritoriality, cyber attack, geopolitical, cognitive attack, blah, blah, blah. I mean, spywares, everything we do has a problem. And the problem could be devastating if we don't apply the right solution. So as I said, I believe we're in a new era, what I call a Splinternet 2.0. It means that we have basically splintered the world in three. The democratic internet, the US, Europe, Japan, basically, and most of the liberal democracies. And what I usually call the dictator net, that is this assembly of countries that basically are starting to slowly connect. Of course, it started with China. It's very funny because 3 years, as I remember, it took 3 years to completely disconnect. And this is something I talked about last year, but what is very interesting is when you look at the reach of companies like TikTok, the ability, the pool China has to basically attack cognitively or making even cyber attack in the West. None of our companies are actually available there. So there's a complete asymmetrical approach. And this is going to be a big challenge because, of course, the question is, how do we do to protect ourselves without becoming what we don't want to be, meaning the other side? The other interesting thing is the weaponization of the internet. As you know, when the iMac was introduced, basically our entire digital life would be in the computer. First in the computer and then in the phone. But at the very beginning, everything we had was very clearly tagged. We had a personal content, we had public content, and the commercial space was very easy. And of course, when we moved to the cloud, suddenly part of this became commercial. And when the public debate started to be organized by social media, it became commercial and then weaponized. The big question today is that most of the countries that have severed partially or completely for many reasons, and as you know, the number is 35, there are probably more countries that have partially or completely disconnected because they cannot handle, let me see if I can go back, that part. Suddenly you're not in control of your public narrative, you have no idea what the content of your phone and content is being used at. Of course, it's not only about software, it's also hardware. And we've seen, since the last time we talked, how many submarine cables have been attacked. And now we have to protect the servers, we have to protect the cables, and possibly now the satellites. So, what are the interesting approaches? I don't know if you're familiar with the dark forest theory. It's coming from Li Ching, the free body problem. Great book, potentially a good show. I haven't seen it yet. But what is interesting is if you expand this idea, and I'm going to come to that very simply, you will understand that we're in a new world. Very briefly, I'd like to remind you 3 important things. I actually took that last minute from my yesterday presentation. We've moved from a deterministic world in a non-deterministic world, and that is by itself something extremely interesting. Deterministic means the same result gives the same answer, and now, as you know, you can type the same prompt and have different answers. AI is going to start turning everything around. The other interesting thing is we've moved from algorithm, where the data is a parameter, into models. Now we're learning from data. And we've also moved, and that's probably one of the reasons each of us are here, and that's why AI is the main subject this year, from predictive AI to generative. And what is interesting about this is that predictive AI is mostly about data, how much data I have, and I will find patterns, and I will optimize this and that and that. But generative AI is feeding on culture, on content. And this is something extremely new. And as we will see, something that can have an interesting potential. So the idea of the dark forest is something the founder of, I think the founder of Kickstarter, Kinsey had found is fantastic. It's the idea that if you're in the forest in the night, you should make no noise, because the moment you're actually making the rest of the forest aware that you exist, a predator is going to come and eat you alive. And today the internet is in a way very similar. You have underneath the dark web and index mostly onion routers, but we also have this interesting intermittent space. WhatsApp, WhatsApp, emails, SMS. We know the people we're sending information to. They're our friends. It's a stressful way. There's also a personal storage or hard drive where we have everything. But the moment you go public, you make yourself aware on Twitter, formerly Twitter, or publicly on Facebook or LinkedIn or the public web. Suddenly, you're making yourself available to data scrapers, to all these new predators, people who take photos. I mean, take a 10-year-old kid photo and turn it into a disgusting video using bots, using data scraping technology, AI search engine that are literally crawling the internet to get hungry for new content. And this is the new environment where we are. And the funny thing is, as a personal user, I feel more comfortable in this space in between, because this is where I can trust my friends. I have a group of people that I can clearly understand what's their opinion. The moment you move out, it becomes a nightmare. The problem is that, sorry, I'm trying to read myself, but everything in the top is going to get worse. Because, of course, Gen AI is going to amplify. I heard that in Japan now we're using phishing because technology making it slowly available. So suddenly, maybe some countries have escaped the fact that the moment you're a public persona, I was talking to several politicians in France. Some of them are not really liked. And they tell me about their experience on social media. It's a nightmare. We cannot have any debate now. The moment you post something, there's things, there's bots, there's porn, it's very weird. And the big question is this in-between space, what I sometimes call the slow web or your digital intimacy. Will it stay the same way, or will, because of technologies, ways to introduce AI, or maybe you're going to talk to a AI friend and this thing is going to start behaving in a weird way. And of course, there's the dark web. The dark web with AI, I guess it's going to be pretty crazy. But at the moment, what I'm trying to study is where can you stay, where can you operate on a day-to-day basis on the internet and feeling comfortable? Can AI make the clear web or the public web a better place to live? Hopefully, I think everyone at Facebook, I guess most of the social networks are trying to figure out ways of using AI to make this place more livable. But in the meantime, you're going to have to counteract bad elements. And the question of the model as well is how and where, when this thing is going to be politicized and at a geopolitical level, there's going to be the question, for example, I didn't put TikTok in the middle. I put it in the top because what's going to happen with all the messages, how it's going to behave. It's going to be an interesting moment. I'm, at the moment, the very early days of its preview, but I wanted to share with you this idea that the internet has been split in three phases. There's the underground, there's the level of the floor where we feel cozy, and there's the open, clear web that is now, I wouldn't say completely unlivable, but for a lot of people, it's not a great experience. So the question is, if we look at this in the digital world, how it is with, the fact that we're expanding in the physical space. How are things going to happen? What is going to happen? How is it going to work? And I know we had a presentation from Elsing just before, but I wanted to show you a video of I think it's a show that came out a year ago, I think produced by Apple. I don't know if we can show the video, because I'm now wondering if, this dark forest theory cannot expand as well in the public world. Where are the places where, because of the AI, the cameras, all the technology around, we will feel safe or not? I don't know if we can put...
Now what we plan. Party at the pool. We're sticking to the plan. Quiet in, quiet out. Got approximately 7 targets by the pool. Signal unknown on the balcony of building 1. There's people awake. 04. Confirmed cars. Towers 1, 2, 3. As well as main key tower and small cluster in the adjacent office.
Okay. I was interested and intrigued with shows because, as you know, TV shows are exactly where you want to promote how the world is going. But when I see that we have now drones with capabilities to identify who is armed, who is not, who is a civilian, who is not, I always feel like this idea of the dark forest theory in the internet is going to expand in the real world, and now we're going to have a combination of both. My point is that the next decade is going to be defying, because there's one world where we figure it out and we do not copy what China is doing. We find the best version of the world we want to build. And there's, of course, a darker version of this. And I just wanted to tell you that I'm still working on this, but I'm very intrigued by which decisions we're going to make and which decisions most of you in this room are going to make. Thank you so much.